I call that the taste of blood. Anytime a new agent does their first deal, if they're truly motivated, like that $7,500 paycheck that I got from that first deal, all of a sudden it was like, like you say, you get addicted to it, but it's like you get that taste of blood, and suddenly that's all you want to do is just sell everywhere you go.
Welcome back to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Mark Faris. Today we are interviewing Derek Timmons. Derek is the leader of the Maverick Group. And so he sold in 2024, 123 transactions, 63 million in sales volume. He has 3 agents working with him, 2 full-time staff, and he is really focused on customer service. So we're going to be diving into that today. Derek, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm really excited about this.
Very cool, man. Well, you and I, we had a really great conversation a couple weeks ago, and we thought it'd be really good to have you on. I know customer service is a big part of your success and repeat and referral, and we're going to be diving into that. But can we go back to the origin story? Like maybe share a little bit about your background and then what got you into real estate.
Yeah, for sure. So my story is, I don't think unusual compared to most people who get into real estate. I feel like I got into real estate by accident. I never wanted to be a realtor, to be completely honest with you. I got my real estate license because I was in construction for a long time. And no matter what I tried to build my business or to grow it or scale it or whatever, it just seemed like there was always something getting in the way. And I realized it was just not the right vehicle for me. But when I got my license originally, it was because I wanted to flip houses. So and I actually come from a long line of realtors. So my grandfather was a realtor. My mom was a realtor. Now my niece is actually a realtor. So there's 4 generations in a row, which is cool. But my mom's side was all real estate agents and my dad's side was all construction workers. So, I grew up going to show homes, open houses, things like that. But when I first got my license, I really had no intention of ever being a real estate agent. And then just by some streak of luck, I got licensed November 1st of 2017. And in June of 2018, through my sphere of influence of people that I knew, I ended up doing 2 ends, 1 listing and 1 purchase. And I made more on the side selling real estate than I was making full-time doing construction. And when that happened, I started to really examine my life and how that happened. And, I was laughing about the heaviest thing I had to lift was my cell phone. And I decided, which even though at the time my financial life was very poor, I was broke. My visa was maxed, line of credit was maxed. I had no money saved really. I took the money that I made and I invested into coaching for a year. So I hired Richard Robbins, which is how you and I met. And even though I was still doing drywall full time, I was taking coaching calls from my truck at job sites. And over time, I just, met enough people that were doing the right stuff and really just started copying. So everything I did still to this day, everything that I do, I try to find someone that's way better than me at it. And I figure out what they're doing. I ask them if they can give me some advice and then I just copy it. I don't try to reinvent the wheel, because if someone's seen success, I'm not going to question that. So my first year, I sold 2 houses, which was a huge year, obviously. And then my second year, so in 2019, I was still doing drywall between January and May 1st. I sold 3 houses. And then all of a sudden I was just over construction. I got to a breaking point. So I quit and I went full time with no pipeline, with no real clue of how to be a full-time agent. And then between May 1st and December 31st that year, I sold 22 more. So I finished 2019 with 25 ends. And then 2020, things really came together, even though COVID hit. And I thought I had made the biggest mistake in the world by, quitting my quote unquote secure paycheck. I ended up doing 47 ends in 2020. And then in 2021 was 91. So every year since, it's just been growing and growing and growing. And in 2021 was when I realized I can't do this by myself. 91 deals alone with no admin, no systems, no anything. I just hit this huge burnout. And that's when we started building a team.
What a great story. What a great story. Very similar to me when I got into real estate. I wanted to learn more about real estate investing. And then when you get into it, it becomes addictive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You love it. It's just one of those businesses when you really start to catch on, and you start to see that full cycle, as in you work really hard, you get a deal, and then you close on it, and then you get a paycheck. Once you go do that full cycle once, you're like, ooh, and then you do it again. It's like, ooh, there's like the roller coaster of emotions, right? From like feeling in the pits of despair to like the highest high ever, once you get a firm sale and, the clients are happy, and then you close and, you get that paycheck there. You realize it's a beautiful business, man. It's
Yeah,
such a beautiful business.
I call that the taste of blood, what you're talking about. So anytime, if there's like a dog that has part wolf in them, if they, go and kill something, they get the taste of blood and they become a
Yeah.
savage.
Yeah.
Anytime a new agent does their first deal, if they're truly motivated, like that $7,500 paycheck that I got from that first deal, all of a sudden it was like, like you say, you get addicted to it, but it's like you get that taste of blood, and suddenly that's all you want to do is just sell everywhere you go.
So tell me, Derek, what was your original motivator? Like, what made you work hard to be able to do, 25 ends and 4791 all on your own? Like, what drove you?
Poverty. uh, my mom was living with me, and so I was supporting her and my son, who at the time I think he would have been maybe 8 or 9 or 10 ish in there. Um, and when I was trying to get real estate going, but still working full time in drywall and trying to raise this kid on my own, it wasn't working. So I asked my mom for some help, and she ended up moving in. So she took over the house and just allowed me to focus. But really, all the bills were on me, and we didn't have any money. So I remember when I did quit, like I said, my visa was maxed, my line of credit was maxed, and my mom took $15,000 off of her line of credit, which maxed that out as well, to give me a little cash injection. And she said, you can't screw this up, because if this doesn't work, we're completely out of money.
Screwed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just worked as hard as I could. I did everything I was told, and I ended up landing 6 listings in 10 days. I remember this. It was August of 2019.
Was that after you got that 50, after your mom gave you those funds?
She
Was that
gave me
right
that
after that?
money. She gave me that money to support those listings, because
Oh,
we needed
got it.
lock boxes, photos, measurements, and all this. But back then it was a buyer's market in Alberta. We had like 6 months of inventory. So listings weren't really
Right,
they were
right.
super hit and miss. But by by the grace of God, every single one of those listings went up and sold within 7 to 14 days. And then in October of 2019, had our first real big closing month where we made $27,000. And ever since then, we've never looked back. But to answer your question, it was fear, man. Fear of starving. And it wasn't about ego. It wasn't about trying to prove myself. It was just feeding my family. And, I kept my drywall tools bundled up in a box right by the door in my garage. And every day I would because real estate can be hard, right? But I made a decision every day. I would look at those tools and I'd say, am I going back today, or am I going to give this one more day? And I would just look at the tools, and it was a hard no. I'm not putting those tools on. And I haven't had to since. So it was interesting.
That's such a great story. It's interesting that, you see all these videos and, all these inspirational videos of like, you got to be successful. But when you really talk with a lot of successful people, like my story is the same thing. Like, Joanna came home one day. She's like, Mark, I didn't have any money for milk today. I'm like, newly wed husband that was not providing for his wife, that had her father's a very strong Polish business guy too, right? And of course, I like wanted to impress him, and I was not impressing him. And there was fear. Like, I still think back on that, and it's like it can be emotional. But it's beautiful for me though too. I look back at those memories and like pushing through that. There's like, probably for you Derek, looking back, like what are your thoughts or feelings when you look back at your beginning origin story, and like the feelings that you had to go through and then overcoming?
Yeah, they are emotional for sure. I have pictures we lived in this tiny little 1,100 square foot semi-detached home, and my life was all in my bedroom. So my office was in my bedroom. I ate, slept, worked, everything in this 400 square feet. And I look back on that, and my son would sit on the bed playing video games and listening to me make calls for hours and hours. And now, we're very fortunate where we're at. But my mom, unfortunately, she passed away in 2023. But before she passed away, I was able to at one point in time walk into the bank and pay off all of her debt, and that was like the craziest feeling in the world. And then I actually put her on a salary, just as a consultant. And so she was getting a paycheck every 2 weeks from us to live a comfortable life, and she never came from much. So I think about it now, and it's such a blessing. But
Oh, man.
it was hard. It was a hard. Those were probably the most challenging 2 years of my life by far.
How was it? I'm sorry about your mom going through that. How was it for her when you started, you walked in and you told her that all the debt was paid off and I'm going to put you on payroll and you're going to start getting a check every couple of weeks. Your investment in me is now paying off big time. How was that? How was that for her? Well, like, how did she respond to that?
She was very uncomfortable about it. She had a hard
Okay.
time with it, but I finally just said, "This isn't a negotiation. Like, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you." And then she was upset the following year because it put her over the tax bracket, so she had to pay more taxes. And I was like, "Mom, I'll cut you a check for your taxes." It was like
Yeah.
$3,400. But
Well,
yeah, it was really cool to get to do that.
it was good that you guys aren't in Ontario there. The tax number might have been a little higher than Alberta, but that's amazing. So fear would be at the beginning. How about now that you're starting to do well? Like, what is driving you? That's one thing that I noticed about you, Derek, when we were having the conversation, a little while back, is I'm like, man, this guy's motivated and he's hungry. And what you were saying earlier about, like, I just copy proven models and I just do what they say and I don't question it. And then I just take action on it. That's a big one. But what keeps you motivated now that you're putting food on the table, right? Financially, that's not as much of an issue, paying the mortgage and all the rest of it. So what drives you now?
Great question. And this is something that I've had to spend a lot of time, processing, because you do get to a point where, like you say, your mortgage is paid, you're super comfortable, you're taking great trips, you're living a great life, and you sort of hit that dream, if you will. And then it's like, well, now what? And the thing that drives me now, of course, we're still self motivated because we want to be, I'm only 40. So I have big dreams for myself personally, but now I want to see other people around me achieve their goals. So we
Mm.
have a guy that joined our team last year who in his first 6 months did 27 ends and made, $130,000 on a 50-50 split, which, he was texting me going, I've never made $100,000 in a year. And I wrote him back and I said, well, you didn't. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you did that in 6 months. You're on pace for 260,000 in your first year. And he's just mind is blown, right? So it's like getting the opportunity to give someone else, in a position where their families are advancing or they're achieving their dreams. That really motivates me too. But also, and this again may sound corny, but I believe that because our team does such great work for people, that it's an obligation for us to help more people, because there's a lot of really terrible agents out there who don't know what they're doing. And maybe it's the industry, maybe it's it's a fairly low bar of entry. So, getting a real estate license is quite simple. It's not expensive. But there's people that just, they end up hurting the consumer because they, for obvious reasons, and I don't need to go too far into that, but then there's just some agents that are greedy and they're out for themselves only. And I just feel like every day when we go to work, we need to find more people that we can help, because we'll give them a better experience and better results. And that motivates me to take over a bigger market share, because I mean, if you read some of our reviews, we're fortunate. We've got 220 plus 5-star reviews, but our clients, like, they're loyal. They're almost like family, and they're coming back forever. And they tell their friends about us, and that tells me that we're doing the right thing, and that gets me fired up.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's so important that you keep that top of mind, like that motivator for you, because it's very easy for complacency to set in. And so for me, once we got food on the table, it was like, okay, and now what? And then it was like awards were motivating for me. And then it was like, once you kind of hit all the awards, then it's like, okay, what, then what? And for me, it was like, okay, I want to make sure that we build this big enough where all of our team members can hit their motivators within the company, right? And then after that, it was kind of like, well, let's create the best experience that's available out there, something I could be proud of. And then it was like, okay, I'm like, okay, there's another one there. It's like, how about helping 10,000 residents? And so partner with other investors, and we're buying these large apartment buildings down in the US now as a Faris Capital is a separate business. That is like motivating, that you can provide like a phenomenal culture where you can elevate their living experience. That's motivating to help that many people. And it's interesting that once you get to a certain point and you nailed it, it's like helping other people then becomes motivating and making impact in people's lives, right? It's like contribution is one of the I guess one of the core needs that Tony Robbins talks about. Once you have certainty and you're putting food on the table, right? So I just, to circle back, the reason I'm sharing this is that for the listeners out there, if you're not motivated, it's really important to hone in on what will motivate you. And motivation can be anything. It's all it is I call them motivators. It's like a stimulus to do something, a stimulus to wake up a little earlier, stay a little later, and to actually put in the work. Because I mean, Derek, you said a little earlier, like it can be a tough business. And it's really important to have that little something behind you, like saying, keep going. You have to keep going. You can't give up yet. It's really important for success.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I remember when I would be showing a buyer something and they'd say, yeah, we want to put an offer. And I felt like I was floating home, right? And it was just so excited to get it right an offer. And now that feeling sort of isn't quite there, because we've done enough volume, and negotiating offers is part of the deal. So there's no real adrenaline rush anymore, for me at least. But when we get the results, like we're working with a single mom right now who was very afraid about listing her house because she has 3 kids to think about, and she wanted to find a house first before she listed. And we walked her through all the the pros and cons of that. Finally convinced her to list, got her a great price on her listing, and then I tell everyone, you have to have faith that the right place is gonna come as soon as you're ready. And no kidding, the day we got a waiver on her property, like the perfect house listed, within an hour we were in it. She was glowing and she was like, this is the one. And so we secured that for her, and she's just so happy. And so that's where you get those feelings now. Like I used to be excited about negotiating a deal. Now I'm excited about handing the keys to the single mom who's worked really hard to upsize from a townhouse to a detached, right? So it just evolves over time.
Yeah, that's really good. It's also quite motivating when you see a 5-star Google review come through too, right?
Yeah. Those are fun.
Yes,
those are fun.
got one, right?
Yeah.
No, that's great. So, all right, so let's talk about how you make clients loyal. So that's a big one, right? The customer service side of it. Let's dive into that a little bit as to like, what do you think? So agents that are listening out there, they're like, okay, that sounds great. Everybody talks about that. They talk about, they give the best customer service and, loyalty, and your numbers are showing you're doing something right. So the results align with what you're saying. That's really important. And so for the listeners out there, like, what do you think good customer service is? And like, what are some of the things that you're doing to be able to deliver it to make these raving fans?
Yeah, great question, and something we talk about daily with our team. First of all, you have to have a very, very strong moral compass, I believe, not just in real estate, but in business and in life, but very much in real estate, because there is a lot of money on the table, and we do get rewarded heavily for our successes here. But if your focus and your motivation is, self-serving, you're going to be exposed. And, I made a decision when I came into real estate that I was never going to do anything or make any decision if it wasn't the perfect fit or the right situation for that person. And so always 100% of the time, our focus is what's best for this person. And we never think about ourselves. We never think about, let's say you go through a deal and you get to the home inspection and there's just a lot of things wrong. And maybe they're minor things and you can have those all fixed and repaired, but this buyer just doesn't feel comfortable with it. We don't try to talk them out of that. We just try to listen to them, understand what they need, and then we work for them. And so we tell all of our clients all the time, hey, look, I work for you. At the end of the day, if this is what you want to do, I fully support that 100%. And we just give them 100% of our attention. We are loyal to them and we fight for them. We also have a rule on our team. We're not allowed to double end a listing. It's just not something we'll do because it's a huge conflict there. It is honestly, as crazy as it sounds, it works as a selling feature too when you're at the listing presentation to tell them, like, I'm not going to represent a buyer if I'm representing you. But we believe deeply that it's our responsibility to do what's right for them 100%, and they come first. And then as a reward for that, we get paid, and we get paid really well. But we never think about a paycheck. I don't calculate what I'm going to make on a deal. I don't even until I see a trade sheet come into my inbox, I don't even know. I have a rough idea. I'm pretty good at simple math. But it's never a consideration. And we treat the $100,000 condo per buyer the same as the $1 million estate home seller. Like, everyone gets the same treatment, AAA star or AAA plus, communication as best as we can. It's a cardinal sin in this business to ever have a client reach out and say, what's the next step? If you have if your client is ever trying to find out what happened with that showing, or, what asking you anything, if you're ever having a client asking you what they need to do next, you're dropping the ball in a big way. And I'm not trying to sound rude, but we just have, and with tech these days, everything's automated, like Follow Up Boss, Monday.com, you name it. Like, you can click buttons and emails fire. And our systems are super refined so that our customer service they will always know where they're at. And so as a result of that, we take away the anxiety from the people, from our clients. There's the stress and the anxiety. We don't want them doing anything. We don't want them pulling condo docs. We don't want them ordering RPRs, which is a thing in Alberta. Ontario doesn't have them, but we don't want them doing that stuff. We don't want them sending their documents to the lender or the lawyer or any of that, because for one, we're going to do it better. We know what to send, and for two, they shouldn't have. They're paying us a lot of money to do that stuff, so we're going to do it for them. If you're a consumer watching this and you have a real estate agent saying, okay, now that we've accepted an offer on your condo, you need to pull these 37 documents and pay all this money, you found the wrong agent, right? Like, we should be doing the heavy lifting for them. And we don't want them to, I joke with people, say, all we want you to do is find the right house and pack your stuff. That's it. Everything else we'll take care of. So, but I think those things, there's a few things I said there, but number one is always put them first 100% of the time. And you have to be genuine about that. Work your ass off for them, work as hard as you possibly can, and just make sure that they never are in the dark. If you can do those three things, your clients will be so loyal. At least that's what we found.
That's really good. I like what you had said there about, if they ask you what the next step is, then you didn't get it right. You had said there's like the cardinal sin. And so it's a good canary to say, okay, if they ask you what the next step is, that's actually a really good sign, because then you can identify. It should only happen once, right? You identify it and you're like, okay, if this is a question for this client, then I should probably put something in to inform them, all future clients, about this step. And then you can be proactive. So I think that's a big difference, Derek, say between how you run your business and most agents out there. Is like, you find the small things, and in this case it's a big thing, and then you put in systems to be able to get ahead of it. Just like when you're at a listing appointment, you want to handle the commission objection before the commission objection comes up, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to handle it at the end. You want to hit it all through the presentation, so at the end it's already handled. And it's the same with like customer service. Like, they say what the next step is, put in a process or system or automation to ensure that on all future clients that's going to be proactively we'll say said, right? And so that doesn't come up anymore. And that's how best experience in the world, like, nobody ever gets to best experience in the world. It's a subjective thing. But if it's over there, you collect feedback from team members and clients on a weekly basis, and you collect it, you talk on it, you discuss it, you put systems, processes, training around making sure that doesn't come up again. And then you do it again and again and again and again over time, weeks. It gets better and better. And then people are like, how'd you do it? It's like, this is not a silver bullet answer. This was like these are Alex Hermosi says a bunch of golden BBs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just lots and lots of little things, but it was an approach to collect feedback and then fix it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, like we call those holes in the boat, right? Like
That's good.
there's a hole in the boat. You got to plug that hole, right? So and just like you said, if something's come up 2, 3, 4 times, we gotta figure out a system around that. And in 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, he talks about his acronym DEAL. So DEAL. So you ask, can you delegate it? Can you eliminate it? Can you automate it, or can you liberate it? Right. So like, does this even need to be here? Like, if this doesn't need to be here, set it free and let it go. Right. But so we ask that a lot of times. Like, so, and mostly our focus is on the automating side because or eliminating and automating. So if there's 2 steps that could be put together into one, um, squish them together and do 1 step. You're right. So the less steps you have, the less resistance you're going to have against your, your machine, if you will. And the less resistance you have, the more time you have for not only doing more production, but also having a life. Like, that's the big thing now, is like, it sounds really great when you say, we did 123 deals last year, but if you're working 365 days and you hate your life and you don't spend time with your kids and you can't remember what your spouse looks like, that's not a life I want. And I refuse to live that way. So systems is where it's at for sure.
What systems do you recommend agents have? So I think you mentioned a couple earlier, Follow Up Boss, Monday.com. Are there any other platforms that you use on a regular basis that helps you document your processes and execute automation?
So those are our 2 main ones. We use Monday for the admin. We've had a lot of agents tell us we don't really need it. Follow Up Boss can do all of it, but like, our admin is a total rock star. And what she's figured out to do between her and Catherine, our operations manager, they have it so dialed in and it's so smooth that, like, you literally click a button, it pull, like, let's say a deal goes firm and they need to send the information to the lawyers. They'll click a button, it'll pull all the documents from the Google Drive and email the lawyer a template and copy the the sellers or buyers into it. So it's like all this work into the click of a button. It just makes things way faster. So, but Follow Up Boss, like, I mean, it's revolutionary. Like, it's changed our business so much because it's such a robust system that has so many features that it can be completely overwhelming. And I'll admit, it did that to me at first too. But when you really dial it in, man, it can make you so much more effective. We make hundreds of thousands of dollars more because we drop so many less balls. Now, I mean, as far as systems, like, there can be a system for everything. We literally have a system for our gifts, right? Where we give the same gift to every client, but it's a really nice gift. It's, there's a walnut cutting board in there that's branded. We give a Cutco knife that's also branded. There's some sea salts and salt and vinegar, or not salt and vinegar, oil and vinegar. But we have 40 of those boxes in my basement right now, where when you have a possession, you come and grab a gift and away you go. So we don't spend any time going shopping for people because, again, if you have to do that 3 or 4 times, you shouldn't do that anymore. So we systematize, like, the gifting or just everything. Like, we don't want to touch it as many times as possible. We want to just offload it. So I'm not sure that was a great answer for your question,
No,
but
it's very good. And if you want to take that gift to the next level, you said salt and vinegar. If you put salt and vinegar chips in, it would definitely elevate that gift to the next level. They're the best.
okay.
Salt and vinegar, Miss Vicky's. Man, I don't have them a lot, but in the case that I do grab salt and vinegar chips, it takes it to the next level. So, kind of my one dry joke of the day there. I know you're kind of looking at me a little bit. It's like salt and vinegar chips for a closing gift. No, oil and vinegar is great.
Yeah.
That's but now you know what my weak point is: salt and vinegar chips. So. Going back to what you had said from a foundational truth standpoint and service, branding compass. So when I started, there was this young couple, and they were looking for a home, and they were looking in that $200,000 range. So $200,000 when many years ago, I mean, our average sale price now is like $850, and so this is a number of years ago. And we found a house for them, and they loved it. They put the offer in, and then there's this property during the conditional period. So in the States, if you're listening, it's a contingency period. And this other property came up in this other area that they were looking on, and it was actually a better price. It was a power sale, but it had so much upside in it. And Joanna and I, we were struggling financially at this point. And I had this like dilemma. I was looking at the hot sheet. I was looking at this property. They were under contract on this other property. I'm like, if I call them, because I knew this new one was probably going to get in a multiple offer situation, right? If I call them and tell them about this new property that came up, in the back of my mind, I'm like, we could really use this commission check. And it's like, what happens if they don't get that? And it's like, do you keep them focused on that, the property that they really like? Because let me maybe dial in a little bit more. They really liked it. I don't know that they fell in love or it was like drop dead. So I'm like, what am I going to do when you have that? And I think all agents, they go through that exact same scenario many times, right? Another property comes up, they're under contract, you're busy, you got stuff going on, and like, what do you do? What do you do in that situation? And I thought about it, and love is one of our core values on our team. And I thought, okay, I'm going to filter through that value. What's the loving thing to do here? If you really love your clients, what should you do? And I was like, okay, it wasn't the easy decision, because I could have lost the deal and we could really use it. But I called them up and I said, hey, listen, Adam, there's a property that came up over here. Like, this is a really good deal. And I know you got this other property under contract right now, but I think we should go take a look at it. He's like, yep, no problem. I'm going to come. And so we did. They liked it. We put the offer in, and we got it. And no, of course, we had to let the other agent know, listen, we're not proceeding. And, I was straight with them. But he called me up after. He said, hey, he's like, I just want to like really thank you that you called me. He's like, because it was less price too. So it was less commission at the end of the day. And he's like, that was really cool. You called me. I know you didn't need to. And so he acknowledged it. And, since then he's sent crazy amount of business. But the point is that moral compass at the foundational truth, that's not even something that you can train. I think that's something that you have it innately in you, that you have this deep yearning to serve people. And it's not about you, right? It's about the clients. And the key is to keep that top of mind as success starts to come, that they're still putting food on your table, right? You're not the one that is the prize. They're the one that's putting food on your table. They're the client, right? And so I think it's easy as you start to get some success to get a little bit prideful that, I'm God's gift. But at the end of the day, Derek, I know that for you, there's a humility and a humbleness about you that's highly attractive. And I think if agents lose that as they become successful, then they lose that magnetism, I think. And that's why you see some agents' businesses start to decline.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I on that same, sort of wavelength with doing that with your clients, I ask agents on our team, I'm like, are you going to be excited about going to a barbecue at their house next summer? Or are you going to be like, oh man, why did I sell them this house? Right. And are they going to be excited about having you at a barbecue, or be like, why did you do this? Like, this was, that relationship. And when you get further down the road and start to really study the lifetime value of a customer or a client, there's power there, because again, I've been taught by my coach, like, you have to bring it even more on your second round with those people. Like, you can't just assume, hey, I know Mark, we did a deal before and now like I'm their guy. You got to work even harder, because it's just part of the deal. So, but that's where you feel good. So, I love that.
Were there and are there any habits or routines that you do on a daily basis that helps you maintain that productivity and even, take it to the next level?
Yes. I'm I'm a little crazy about my habits. Well, not necessarily crazy. I'm very committed to my habits. I'm currently reading for the third time right now, What's in It for Them by Joe Polish. And just the other day, he was mentioning in the whatever chapter it was that there really are no such thing as bad habits. There's just habits we're good at that bring bad results. Um, and so I thought that was really cool because, you know, anything you look at, like, I mean, if you're doing stuff that are going to take you closer to your goals, great, do a lot of that. If you're doing stuff that's going to take you further from your goals, try to get rid of those. So, Catherine and I are really big on, we wake up early, like really early, you know, between 4 and 5 every day. We like to start our day, you know, with some prayer and meditation. I personally read for an hour every morning. I just like the way it balances my mind, gets me ready for the day, inspires me, constantly learning. You know, I feel like if I can take 1% out of every book that I read and every podcast I listen to, it not only am I getting better, but it just feels good. And then I'm on the phone every day from 9 till 1 o'clock. I don't take a single appointment. I will not ever take an appointment. Even today, this meeting with you guys was 1:30 my time, because, you know, if I have a choice, I don't want to do any appointments in the morning, because I want all that time to be outward going communication, following up with, you know, prospects or leads or what have you. So that's a habit of mine that I really truly believe in. So, you know, from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock every day, um, it's all outgoing. It's everything is, you know, either I'm communicating with my clients, giving them updates on what's going on. Like, I won't negotiate offers during that time. I won't any of that stuff. It's all got to be what's happening in the future. But yeah, my morning routine is everything. I notice, like, for me, if I sleep in and I miss, like, you know, if I don't read and if I don't, you know, have some time to pray and meditate, um, I'm off. I just feel off. And that stuff makes me feel good. And I believe that when you feel good and you're in a peak state and you're inspired, you're going to do greater work and you're going to serve people better. So if you're not doing those things that are going to benefit yourself, you just, you know, we won't be able to sustain it long term. Like, you know, high volume activity, whatever business you're in, requires a huge amount of dedication and commitment. But you're getting, you know, punches in the gut constantly, right? I was going to use a different reference, but I'm trying to keep it clean for your for your show. But you know, like, it's just you're getting knocked down every day in business. Like, if you haven't gotten smashed into the wall in the last week, you haven't been working. Deals die. People use different agents. You know, they've been working with you for 2 years, and suddenly, you know, their cousin got a real estate license, whatever it is. And so I find that when I'm in a good peak state, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, I could plow through those a lot better.
That's really good. 9 to 1 o'clock. How many calls, how many conversations on average would you have during that time frame?
So when I was first getting started and I didn't have a pipeline and I didn't have any deals, I tried to make 30 contacts every day between 9 and 1. So whether that be social media, reaching out to people, people on my database, you know, in my CRM, people that I hadn't talked to. It was always my goal to, now I didn't always get there, but I tried to touch base with 30 different people a day. Now I don't do those anywhere near those numbers anymore. But if you look at my cell phone, I'm having anywhere from 20 to 40 either text, phone call, or email conversations a day, between those hours. So it's still a lot. But same thing with, like, my morning routine. Like, if I go 2 or 3 days without my follow up and my prospecting, I just feel like something's wrong. Like, I feel good being on the phone. And Catherine and I joke. Catherine's obviously, she's my partner. We live together. We work together. Our office is in the same room. She does all the operations and marketing, and she's brilliant with the tech stuff. But I joke, I'm like, she sits at her desk and works, and I walk around the island in the kitchen talking on the phone. That's what our life is like. So, I mean, I burn out my cell phone by 1 o'clock every day, at least once. So, yeah, that's a big part of my day.
This is like such a foundational, great activity on a day-to-day with real estate agents. I think the industry doesn't talk about this enough. And so I want to dial in on this a little bit more. So what are we'll say the forms of communication? You said social media. So you're going to direct message them on social media on the different, like, what platforms would you be communicating with them
So
on?
me personally, I actually have deleted social media off my phone. I did that a few years ago, because I wanted to hyper focus on my business. But we as a team, like the marketing team does the social media, but for me, I'm all about a phone call. Um, I need to, I like to talk to people. I don't love it, to be honest with you. Like it's not, sometimes you call people up, like I call every one of our clients on their birthday, and sometimes there's 5 calls I got to make. And some of those calls can be 20 minutes, and that's great. But I feel like if I make that phone call and I have that personal connection and I actually show interest in their life, genuine interest, so much more powerful than just going on Facebook and posting on the wall and being like happy birthday with like a party
Yeah,
popper emoji or
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
So texting would be the second form, the second most popular, or my second go-to. I'm reluctant about emailing. I don't really think it's an effective way to communicate unless it's a next step sort of thing. I think someone told me one time that the average consumer replies to an email within 4 hours, but they reply to a text message within 2 minutes. And some people just don't want to talk on the phone. I do have people that say that, honestly, like, I just don't like talking on the phone. Can you text me? And that's fine. But yeah, texting and phoning. But I mean, if it's a brand new person that you've never worked with, that you don't have a relationship with, that doesn't know you worth of anybody or from anyone else, you have to, it's paramount that you get on the phone with them, and you have to meet them face to face, and you have to have that initial consultation, and you have to build that rapport and that trust and that respect. Because I mean, I think about it like, if someone won't even give me the time of day to phone me, like I get people spamming me all the time, like who, you name it, mortgage brokers, home inspectors, yada yada. I get a cold email in my inbox, or I get a text message, hey, if you're ever looking for a photographer,
Right.
let me know. And I'm like, dude, you couldn't even call me. Like, I don't know you or that anything. Like, show me the respect that I'm worth your time. So I feel like that's the same when a lead comes in off realtor.ca. I want to talk to them. I want to get on the phone. I want to ask them what they want. What are they looking for? What's important to them? You can't get that through text and email.
This is really powerful conversation here. So we have connecting through nine to one. That's the main focus. The really important point here that I really want to underline is that a lot of people don't even check their email. So if you send an email and they don't reply back, that doesn't necessarily mean that they see it and they're not looking at it. Or they might even open it, but they just get busy. It doesn't mean that they're trying to ignore you or doing it purposely. Like for example, my wife Joanna, you said calling. She hates phone calls. She will communicate via text. That's her form of communication. And so her email, it's like she doesn't, she's more out of the day to day right now. So, you send an email and she just won't read it, but text, she'll get that. Right.
Yeah.
And then on her voicemail, it's like, don't leave a voicemail, text me. Like that's her
Yeah.
voicemail.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important because we find the same thing that like with email, it's not as effective. People still look at it, but just not like text. Text is definitely the form of choice for sure today, and that might change in the future. But another really cool thing to add from a communication is like video text. If you shoot a video and then text it to them, like we found that to be really effective.
I was just going to add that. Yeah. We do a lot of that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time, because it gets their attention. Not many people do that.
Yeah. So, and then maybe that will get old at one point, and then this will be the next form of communication. Maybe it's like well, whatever that next technology coming down the pipe. But it's important to know, how people are communicating, and text is a big
Well,
form.
and I'll just throw this in there real quick. A lot of times I'll call people. This is actually super common. I'll call them and I always make a note of leaving a voicemail, and I try to leave a really positive, voicemail where whatever information I'm trying to deliver, or whatever. If like, let's say I'm following up with a seller lead that has indicated they want to sell in June. And it's February. Once a month or so, I'll call them, or I'll send them some market updates. But if I call them, I'll leave them a voicemail, and I'll say, hey, Mark, it's Derek Timmons here. I just wanted to let you know I got some really great news about what's going on in your area. If you can give me a call when you get a chance, please let me know, or please feel free to do so. You can reach me at my phone number. But then I'll text them and I'll say, "Hey, Mark, it's Derek Timmons. I just left you a voicemail, but in case you don't listen to those, I have some really great news for you about what's going on in your area." I literally say the same thing in the text as I do in the voicemail. And then they want to call you back. And so they do either call you back or they'll text you and be like, "What's the great news?" "Well, your neighbor's house just sold for this amount," or whatever.
Mm.
But I find also too, they'll listen to that voicemail at some point, and then it's just another, like, there's what's that, three touch points. Like, they saw your name on their phone when they missed a call. They saw a text on your phone when you texted them. Then they listened to your voicemail. So like, you're really just like embedding yourself in that person's brain.
Yeah, that's really great insight. And, you want to be that number one or two agent. Gary Keller talks about that in his book, million dollar or millionaire real estate agent, is that like people can only hold in their minds like two agents. If you were to ask most people, they'll say like two agents. And if you can be that person, then you're going to get a phone call. And so that's great. I mean, you text and then you leave a voicemail and then you text. It's like two touches,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you get on the phone with them. That's three touches.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I would think, I mean, that would create more of that rule of reciprocity. Whoa, like Derek really wants to get a hold of me. Like, he left the voicemail and he texted me. He's working really hard. I feel more obligated to get back to him.
Yeah. And sometimes the great news is just that, you know, it could be anything. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it doesn't have to be anything major. Like, hey, the great news is our days on market just reduced from 28 to 25. Like, which is seemingly insignificant, but you have great news for them. And that is great news. The market's moving quicker. But I really like that one a lot, especially if it's someone that I've never worked with and I'm trying to prove my value to them. I always tell them I have great news for them, but you better have something to tell them, right? So you got to think about that before you call them. But I use this with my guys all the time. I'm like, "Hey, tell them you have great news." And they call you back like almost right away. And then usually it's like, "Hey, your neighbor's house just sold and they did really well," or whatever. But just make sure you have something. But that line of like, "Hey, Mark, I have really great news for you. Please give me a call when you get a chance." They will call you back. Like,
Mm,
guarantee it. And you'll have a 3-minute phone call, but that's an impactful phone call.
mm. So it reminds me of this study, Derek, that they did for photocopying machines. So there was a lineup, and they basically tested to see the number of times that people would let people budge. So the first person comes by and says, "Hi, can I jump in front of you? Can I jump in front of you in the line?" Um, and there was like they counted the amount of people that said yes, and then they had a second group go in and say, "Hey, can I cut in front of you? I need to make some photocopies." And then like the third one is like, "Hi, can I cut in front of you? I'm going to make some photocopies because I'm in a rush." And the ones that were they gave a reason for cutting in front of them, like the percentage of people like saying, yeah, go ahead, they complied with it, was like through the roof. It was way more. And
Yeah.
so what they realize is that all you need to do, so first off, because is a very influencing word. So because, or another way is to just give a reason to do something. And
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't even really matter what the reason is. So how you can and really relate this to what you're saying and why it's so effective with like, I have some really great news, that there's a reason to call back. So
Yeah.
instead of, "Hey, just checking in, like
Yeah.
give me a call back," it's
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, I'm not gonna," like, you'll get probably half the people replying back compared to, "Hey, call me back because I have some great news." Like, that to me is compelling. You give a reason to do that. So any sort of influencing, we'll say, conversation, tell them the reason why they need to comply or to do that certain thing. And your conversion numbers will go way up.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge.
Yeah. So let's go back to the customer service. Oh, one last thing I want to underline that you said that I felt was really powerful there is that getting face to face meetings. I think the communication is great. Text is great, and everything we talked about, phone call and getting people to call you back and whatnot. But there's nothing that beats face to face. And
No.
so there was this agent when I started, and he drew these two kind of, you know half you know half circles, and he said, "Mark," he said, "this is a belly to belly business." He pointed at the two lines, right? Belly to belly. And not that real estate agents have bellies, but the point there is that this is a belly to belly business. And that really stuck with me because, it was so true. It's like, you got to get in front of people, and that's what helps build the most amount of trust. And so to me, there's this acronym, BAMFAM, book a meeting from a meeting. And I know it's been used kind of through the industry from time to time, but like anytime that you're having a conversation with them, you want to try and book that next meeting. And anytime it can be face to face, it's just your conversion rate will go through the roof compared to just on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. Like, I mean, there's guys now in the industry that are bragging about these AI CRMs that have the conversations with the leads right off the hop. And this guy was trying to sell me on it, and I'm like, why would I want that? He's like, well, it has a conversation for you. And I'm like, yeah, but what happens when I got to go and meet them and I have no idea what we've talked about? Like, I don't want that. That's crazy to me. Like, that's just lazy. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's also a lot of agents out there too, Derek, that if they had the choice, they wouldn't they wouldn't have any clients, and they just want the income, right? So when I say not any clients, like if they could never talk to anybody again in their business, they would be happy with that too. So I think,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a market for that as well. But I hear what you're saying there as well, of like truly connecting, and it's like heart to heart, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's go back. So customer service. Do you have any other like customer service advice that you want to give the listeners? I know that's a really big part of your service. We talked about a lot here, so we'll leave it at customer service, or any sort of marketing advice or lead gen advice that you would give on those one of those three.
Sure. So, again, a lot of this stuff that I have to say is fairly cliche. I learn it from conferences or books or whatever, but it's all super effective. That's why we do it. But there's that old adage that, like, the golden rule is to treat someone how you would want to be treated. But now there's a platinum rule, which is treat them how they want to be treated. And so one thing that we're really big on is we learn and understand other people's personality types. So with the Richard Robbins community, I don't know what the name of the system is, but we study colors. And so there's like green, gold, orange, and blue. And so we really try to figure out as quickly as we can what type of personality this person has. And then we tailor our communication and our presentation and all that around that, because you can't speak to a green the same way you would speak to an orange. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this system, a green would be someone that is very like, they're very to the point. They're highly successful. They're usually highly intelligent, and they get bored easily with conversations that have no interest to them. They don't want you to take 10 minutes to explain something you could do in 30 seconds. And so if you're going in to a presentation with a high green, and you're going roundabout and talking about your feelings and asking them about their weather and what they're doing with their kids this weekend, they're never going to want you back in their home. Right. Whereas a blue is the opposite. They're all about feelings, and I joke, like, someone's a blue when you go, hey, I really like your necklace. And they go, oh, my sister bought me this necklace in Peru, and she brought it back and she tells you her whole life story. Suddenly she doesn't care about facts, figures, days on market stats. She cares that you're listening to her. Right. And so one of our key components with our team is, whenever we're doing a listing specifically, is we do a 2-step process, where the first step is a walkthrough through the home. And I ask anyone that comes into our world, I say, hey, what do you think the purpose of the walkthrough is? And they go, so you can price the house, so you can see the condition. I'm like, yeah, those are all great, benefits, but the purpose, the only reason I go to a walkthrough is to determine what type of personality this person has, and to establish a rapport. So I start asking questions, and I spend all my time asking questions. And human nature is interesting. If you and I are in a conversation, and I spend the whole time asking you questions about yourself, and you're answering them, and you're telling me about your kids, your wife, your business, all this, you'll walk away from that conversation. You'll be like, that Derek is like the nicest guy in the world. But I didn't talk at all. You talked the whole time. Right. But if I show genuine interest in you, that's going to build that rapport really quickly. But there is so much power in information When I go to these walkthroughs, I spend the whole time asking them questions, finding out what they want, what their plans are. Show me everything you love and hate about your home. That's one question I ask people too. And I don't think a lot of people ask at that second part, because there are going to be some things that they don't love about their home, and we're going to want to know that. But the whole purpose of that is to figure out what type of personality they are. So when I come back for my presentation, I'm going to tailor that to their personality style. Like an orange is like a party person. They're high energy. They can't sit still. So like, they don't want you to show them bar graphs and charts and days on market. They don't care. They just want to know, like, can we get this done? Is it going to be fun? Are we going to be excited? But you can't give that same presentation to someone that does care about stats. So again, with customer service, it's like, treat them how they want to be treated. And another huge thing that we found, and this is just a sales not necessarily tactic, but just like fundamental skill, is like, you really have to determine who the decision maker is, because, you can spend all your time saying the right things to the wrong person, and you're not going to go anywhere. Right. And it's pretty clear usually when you do that walkthrough who the decision maker is, because say it's the wife, she's going to lead you through the house. She's going to answer all the questions, and the husband's just going to go, whatever she says, I'm happy with that. So, those are two huge things.
Yeah. Great advice. Now, I'm curious, when you say and ask them to tell you the things that they don't love about the home, that I don't normally ask that question, which is a good question. Think about it. How do people respond? Do you find that they're like over telling you, or do you find that they don't open up enough because they're trying to sell the home? Curious to get what's the feedback from sellers when you ask that question.
So sometimes they will say, well, why do you want to know that? And I'll say, I just want to know if there's anything that's going to come up in our showings that we want to get ahead of.
Yes.
So quite often people will say there's not enough closet space, or there's not enough, the boot room's too small, or I wish my garage fit my truck, so those are things that we want to know. And the reason that it's important to ask that is not because you can market around it or get ahead of it. It's because when someone's willing to tell you those things, they suddenly feel like they can trust you. Right. And so if you can but when they won't tell you and they don't open up, you can tell right away if someone's going to hire you in the first 2 minutes. Like, I mean, I'm sure you found that too. But if you do your presentation, or if you present yourself properly and you develop that rapport quickly, and they start showing you all the great and not so great things about their house, for sure, as long as your price comes in a spot that is going to be, reasonable, and they understand and get that, and you show enough value as to why you're charging what you charge. Like, I mean, our listing appointment conversion currently is like in 92%. So, which we're proud of, but again, when someone is willing to expose these things to you, that means they trust you. And if they trust you, they're going to hire you.
Yeah. That's good. And I love the connectivity side of it. I think, just to add to that as well, I think there's an opportunity there when they show you their thing that they're maybe not proud of about the house, or they reveal a soft spot in them. I would probably add, if there's an opportunity for you to downplay it, as in say, hey, this is what we can do to mitigate that ahead of it. And I would think that if you were to do that, that they would say, oh, this person has my back. This person is totally for me. Well, they're going to get ahead of that thing that I was like subconsciously really fearful for. And I would think that'd be a really good thing to add to, just making sure when they say it, that you don't beat them over the head with it to try and get a lower price. You're backing them up and saying, hey, here's how we can mitigate that and get ahead of it. And I'm on your side.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that comes to mind all the time is like, the older oak looking cabinets. People are like, well, our kitchen's sort of dated and it's got these oak cabinets. And I'm like, you would be surprised how many people love that. And they're like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, there's a buyer for every house. Yeah. We just need to find the right one. And you're right. And I actually never really thought about that. They do sort of like, they almost like disarm, like, okay. And then away they go.
Yeah, you're not going to use it against me. It's funny, when you had said about who's the decision maker, one thing we found is, when you get one spouse, sometimes they beat up another. Sometimes the wife is kind of poking at the husband. For the guy realtors out there, we tell our agents that if the spouse is poking at the husband, it's really, really important that you don't play along with it and like do
Yeah.
a gang up there. You back up and you downplay it and you move on and you try and deflect it and make and help him save face as well. Because what we found was even that somebody was a decision maker, the other person, if they felt like they were getting ganged up on or they felt like they were embarrassed, they will sabotage that relationship as well. So just going back to what where you're saying there, that was a scenario there that we caught on a little bit earlier on, is that you got to be very mindful to build both people up there as well. And if one person is kind of poking, downplay it, and then divert, and then move on from that, I think they'll see that and they'll appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you always want to include everyone. We do a group chat with every one of our clients. Because the last thing you ever want is like, the wife knows that there's a showing at 2 and she didn't tell the husband and he's getting out of the shower or whatever. You just want everyone to feel like they're involved. But generally speaking, we find that with all of our group chats, there's always one person responding. And that's clear indication of who the decision maker is.
For sure. And I totally agree. I mean, that's really important in regards to, nailing that decision maker there and getting clear on that as well. This conversation is not a normal conversation. Like we're talking like influencing, right, at a level, but it's not even like duping people. It's not about that. It's about showing people at a deep level that you truly understand them. And the stuff that we're talking about right now, like this is like mastery stuff that only comes after going hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of appointments and seeing both sides of the fence. And I like it. This is what great customer service is all around, is it's helping people get the good feelings they want about what they're buying and selling and about themselves too. And that last part's really important. Yeah, this is great. Really great. Okay. So can we maybe transition a little bit? What investing challenges are you facing today when it comes down to, interest rates are high, like, you know, deals hard to find cat. Like, what are you finding when a client comes to you and they say, "Hey, I want to buy a real estate. I want to invest in real estate. I own my house right now." Like, what challenges are you facing out there now?
Yeah, there's lots. If we're talking specifically real estate, we are finding like it's harder and harder to find properties that cash flow. Um, and also, we have to have the honest conversation with our clients because some people are okay to take on a property that has a negative cash flow, which I viciously disagree with personally. And I have a hard time with that because they're like, it's okay if we lose a couple $100 a month because over time it's going to be worth more, which is a valid point. But if you study the fundamentals of investing, you want to make money from day one. So that has been one challenge for us. But I mean, for me personally, my challenge that I'm finding is I just want to do all of it right now, and I'm very impatient. Um, and we put ourselves in a tight position because we got ambitious with our investing and we spread ourselves really thin where we were asset rich but cash poor, and that sucked. Like I put myself back in the position where I was first started in real estate, where I wasn't sure if I was going to pay my bills next month because I had these rentals and all this money tied up. And so I think it's really important to find something that works for you, that makes sense for you, but is going to make money. But I mean, as far as real estate goes, now in Calgary, which our market is significantly less expensive than Toronto and Vancouver for now, you have to have 2 doors per property at minimum to make money. Like you have to have that legal suite. It just doesn't make sense otherwise because I mean, you could be in a position where you buy a detached home and you rent it and you are making money, but now you're talking like 35, 40% down. So again, maybe not necessarily a great investment because that same money could be into something else growing a lot faster. So
Yeah, great advice. Very good advice there as well. And that you're investing into real estate as well. And yeah, and cash flow is obviously important. You got to have oxygen to continue. You get to breathe, right? And so I totally understand that as well. It's tough though when you got a good deal sitting in front of you as well, and then you got some money sitting there in the bank. It's not making anything. It's losing with inflation, right? So But that you do take money off the table and you invest along the way. That's something that I think always in 10 years down the road, you wish you would have done more of it. Right. So,
For sure.
yeah. No, great insight. All right. So I just looked at the clock here and we're over an hour, that goes to show this is a great conversation. I mean, we could talk for another hour. I feel like we just scratched the surface here of your success. So let's jump into the rapid fire part of the conversation with the first question is you referenced a couple of really good books, but what would be your favorite book that's made the biggest impact in your business career?
Oh, there's so many, but I mean, the first one that really got me started on the path of self improvement, self discovery, entrepreneurship was Think and Grow Rich. I try to read that once every year, and every time I read it, there's always something that I'm like, "Yeah, when did they put that in there?" If you haven't read that book, it's just such a classic. But there's just so many amazing books. I mean, and even still, like, what's in it for them? Like I say, I'm reading it for the third time right now, and I'll probably read that one every year too. And Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell was another one recently that I've read a couple times that had a huge impact. But overall, if I had to pick one book that, if I could only read this one book forever and ever, and I knew it would continue to grow and cause me to, achieve great things, Think and Grow Rich 100%.
Yeah, great advice there. All right, so 3 words that best describe you.
Yeah, I had to give this one some thought. I think committed, um, leader, and integrity would be, 3 words that would best describe, where I'm at currently in my life.
Yeah, I think for you, I'm going to add one more: genuine.
Okay.
Genuine for you. That's pretty clear to me. I think that's probably what makes you so attractive to clients. Okay, so last one is, what final advice would you give the listeners out there? Maybe it's a new real estate agent, somebody that's starting, or maybe it's an agent out there that just wants to take their business to the next level.
Advice on, like, how to do that, or what
Yeah,
would they
like
do?
how to be successful.
So the thing that I tell brand new agents, I do get a lot of people reaching out to want to pick my brain and go for coffee. And that feels really good. So I like to do that. But I'll tell a brand new agent, don't spend any money on marketing, which is very counterproductive to what they think they should do in their brand when they're brand new in real estate. And the reason I say that is because when you're brand new and you don't have a lot of money, or even if you do have a lot of money, marketing and these big expenses, they take a long time to build up steam. But
Mm.
you can have the best marketing and a flow of leads like you wouldn't believe. But if you don't have experience and systems to handle those, you're just burning cash. Um, when I got into the business, I didn't have any money, as we've already covered, and I ended up making that first sale. And I reached out to this guy that I know this is wildly successful businessman, and I was like, "Look, I set aside $1,000, and I don't want to put it towards marketing. And what should I do?" And he said, "Don't spend it." And I'm like, "What? No, I need to get more clients." And he's like, "You're better off taking 10 couples for dinner and spending $100 on each dinner than you are putting $1,000 into any sort of marketing, because you build that connection with those
Mm.
people." So best advice I give anyone, no matter what stage they're at, is the key ingredients for at least our team is constantly put new people into your CRM. So you got to be out there meeting people all the time. I mean, I met a guy at the gym one time that just from chatting at the gym, we ended up becoming friends, and through that relationship, I did 7 deals in about 2 years, because he sold, he bought, his dad sold and bought, his sister. It just kept going and going. So first and foremost, constantly put new people in your CRM. Find a way to find a system to stay in touch with them on a regular or semi-regular basis and provide value. And then when you do have a live fish on the hook, or whatever you want to call it, AAA service, like, just service the living crap out of that client and just work as hard
Mm.
as you can. And if you just constantly do those things, meet new people, follow up, and service them really well, you won't really need to have a marketing budget until you get to the point where you have extra cash. And when you have extra cash, all day long, you want to invest into marketing. But in the beginning, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't be spending anything on marketing.
That was wise counsel that agent gave you, to take 10 couples out to dinner versus spending the 1,000 on marketing. That was such wise counsel. Very smart guy, whoever told you that. A quick story on this, because you had said you can meet people anywhere. So I was walking, we were boarding an airplane. Okay, this is like 6 months ago. Boarding an airplane, in this amazing like couple. I just started talking to them in the line, getting onto the airplane. Started talking. We talked on the plane. We exchanged contact information within like minutes. And he's in our last deal, he invested 200 grand in our last deal. And he's like, because we actually had a cap in our last deal of 200,000 in our last real estate investment. And he's like, yeah, next deal I'm in as well. This is in the lineup at the airport, right? And so the reason I'm sharing this is that grocery stores, networking events, like coffee shops, like you never know. If they see that you're a genuine person, they'll remember you, and you just never know where the next client. So just keep looking for them. Seek and you shall find, right? Very
Well,
good
but
advice.
also that speaks to your passion about your business and what you believe,
Yeah.
right? We went to Mexico last year for my birthday, and I got the Uber driver's number because we were talking about real estate, and now he wants to list and buy with us, right? So, but like we believe so
Yeah.
much in our business. Like if you're not willing to
Yeah.
have that conversation in the
Yeah.
lineup at the airport, maybe you're in the wrong business.
Yeah. No, this is a powerful interview, Derek. Such a wealth of wisdom, and I can see why you're on the right path, the trajectory of rocket ship, right? So keep going there. How can agents reach out to you? So you're in the Calgary, so Alberta, for any Americans, if you're going to send business. What's the best way they can reach out to you and refer you business?
So our website is a big one, which is maverickgroupyyc.com. And all of our social media has that same handle, maverickgroupyyc.com, or you could send an email to info@maverickgroupyyc.com. Any of those sources, I mean, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you're on, we're on as well. And we'll get back. But generally speaking, our website is our main source, and we've made it so user friendly. So getting in touch with us there is going to be really easy.
Very good. Well, Derek, thanks for coming on the show. Really powerful. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure, man. And what a cool experience to get to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, right on. Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you guys do have a buyer seller that you'd like to refer, Faris team, that's the team we work with, I lead. And so we work north of Toronto, so central in Barrie, Newmarket, and surrounding area there as well. So more than happy to take any of those referrals and treat them with that 5-star service Derek was talking about there today. If you like the show, go ahead and subscribe and share the channel, where we are building a community of full out real estate agents together. I love you guys, and keep on going full out.